The Electoral Commission has revealed that substantial progress has been made in preparation for the 2024 National and Provincial Elections. 70 political parties and 11 independent candidates will contest in the National and Provincial Elections on the 29th of May. Joining us to discuss this further is Ayanda Sishi-Wigzell. She's a political and social commentator as well as freelance journalist. Good evening and thank you very much for your time, Ayanda. So the IEC has stuck to its timetable, refusing to veer off course even with the multiple legal challenges brought against it. And yesterday, in particular, it gave us a progress update and revealed that 70 political parties are contesting next month's elections, 31 of those contesting national elections for the first time. What are we to read into this interest that many have shown to govern the country?
Thank you very much for having me, and good afternoon to all of the SABC viewers. I apologize for me adjusting my laptop right now. Okay, here we go. I think that it's a wonderful opportunity for people who are now raising their hand finally and saying that I want to stand up and I want to make sure that I have an opportunity to have a chance to make sure that I can run this country. What it shows is that we exist in a plural democracy. What it shows is that our democracy is growing in the 30 years since we have existed. Remember, in 1994, we only had 19 political parties stand and pick up their hand to run for government and legislature. But now we have over 34, which is fantastic. It's great. What it means is that for the first time in a really long time, well, we've always been spoiled for choice, but now we have a larger pool of political parties that people can choose from. And it's an array of people. It's different political parties that are coming to the fore. It's people who are from other established political parties who've now started their own outfits. So for the first time in a long time, it's an election season that is exciting. It's an election season that is making people want to actually change their minds for the first time about voting. Some people, not everybody, about whether or not they're going to actually stand for the first time. We saw an influx, albeit very small, of young people actually putting up their hands and saying that they're going to register. There's some political parties that have, for the first time, a large majority of people who are under the age of 35 on their parliamentary list. It's really interesting because people are paying attention. For the first time, there's more advertising outside of the traditional media spaces, which means that more people are now going to have access to information that they need in order to make the right decisions come voting day.
Ayanda, yours is a more positive take on why we're seeing this proliferation of political parties, because some commentators have been saying that perhaps it's the myriad of issues that the country is experiencing right now that has prompted other people to raise their hands and say, I need to solve the solution, and that's why I need to be on the ballot.
Yes, for sure. For sure. You're absolutely correct on that one as well, Balita, because there are issues, a myriad of issues that people are facing in this country, particularly young people, especially when it comes to the advent of unemployment, poverty, lack of access to higher education, and the expenses that are coming from those spaces. And so it is interesting that people are putting up their hand to say that for the first time in a long time that they are not going to be relying on anybody else to solve those issues, that they're going to enter into these systematic and these systems and these institutions and solve the problem from the inside. That is a welcome. That is something that is needed because we need that kind of change. Whether or not we will see that change come from these new political parties is also something that we need to speak about as well. Because in this country, there is something called a trust deficit, which is the reason why it is that I would say there is a sprout of the number of political parties that we are seeing now. Because the political parties already existed, especially the ones that have been established. I'm talking about the African National Congress, the Democratic Alliance, the IFP. These are political parties that have existed since 1994. So you can actually track their record of service delivery, their record of whether or not they stick to the promises when it comes to serving the people that they serve. And what we have seen, especially in spaces like KZN, in the change in the Western Cape, because they have the Democratic Alliance, and that has happened since 2009. But what we are seeing is that more people are opting out of the voting system, and that has been noticed. So now these new political parties are coming up and saying that, hey, we are the ones that are to be trusted. Put your trust in us, and we will be able to change, and we will be the change that you want to see. But if not, whether or not that message is actually going to be translated, we are going to see come May 29, because that's the beauty of being an incumbent party. You don't know what it is that they're going to bring to the fore, which is why I think that you have the utterances that are coming from these established parties, particularly from the Democratic Alliance with what happened the past 2 weeks with Steenhuisen and Songezo Zibi and them saying that they should stay out of campaigning from the Western Cape. We're seeing established parties actually run scared of these new...
That particular statement, John Steenhuisen has tried or attempted to clarify that, saying that it's not that he wants the opposition parties to stay out of the Western Cape, but he's somewhat disheartened at the fact that they would target opposition because they're dividing that vote. He's thinking that the main party that most of them must be focused on is the African National Congress. What do you make of just that position of his to say, do not come to the Western Cape if the Western Cape, according to him, is well governed?
That, to me, number one, is misinformation at its best. Because there is no, in the Electoral Act, it does not say that a political party is not allowed to campaign in a certain part of South Africa. So what he is doing is playing from the exact same playbook that a lot of other political parties play at. And secondly, if he is doing so well and the party is doing so well in the Western Cape, why is it that other political parties coming to campaign there would scare him to the point where he would say, why are you targeting us? Because it's not about targeting other political parties. At the end of the day, it is about the people. And the people need something different. And so this is why I think that there is a problem with opposition in general. It's not about unseating the party that is currently in government right now. It is about humbling yourself, going down to the ground and actually sitting and saying, what do you, Banetla, need from me as a person who is from a political party? What change do you need to see in your communities in order for you to feel that you are a part of the system and that you are a part of South Africa? Right now, what the numbers in the IEC show us when it comes to voter turnout is that majority of people in South Africa do not think that this country is meant for them. They do not think that they are meant to participate in these democratic processes. And utterances that come from the likes of Steenhuisen actually reinforce that message, because it's not about the people on the ground. It's actually about these elite politicians who are fighting amongst themselves for power. Has
he maybe made the wrong assumption that if many political parties, the smaller ones that have just come in, if they have concerns with the ANC's governance, that perhaps they are the alternative? Is that what has happened here, that he wrongly assumed that they would automatically become the alternative?
I would never make the mistake to assume what Mr. Steenhuisen thinks, and I'm not going to make that assumption on national television. But what I do want to say is to tell people in South Africa that there is no such thing as a wasted vote. Yes, there are parties that have bigger membership than others, but if you are on the ballot of the IEC, it means that you have made sure that you've followed all of the provisions, just like these other big political parties have, which means that you have every single right to be on that ballot and you have every single right to be considered for election, just like the DA does, just like the IFP does, just like the UDM does. So I don't think that it is an assumption on the part of Mr. Steenhuisen, but I will say that in terms of political leaders in general, there is this assumption that the people of South Africa do not have the knowledge of political systems and how they work. And so misinformation and disinformation creeps into the language in order to fool people, or to have them think that they are fooling people into believing the rhetoric and the language that comes from them. So I want to reiterate that there is no such rule that says that no political party is allowed to go and participate and campaign in another province. What we are seeing here is the Democratic Alliance running scared because they do not have faith in the messaging that they are sending to the electoral base for them to actually hold and retain the Western Cape, which is why I will make the assumption that Mr. Steenhuisen ran and said the things that he said about Rise Mzansi and about other new political parties that are coming to the fore, because he knows that the messaging that is coming from the Democratic Alliance is not reaching the electoral base and is not giving the confidence to the electoral base in order to put their X against Steenhuisen's head.
Ayanda, all right. Ayanda, thank you very much for your time this evening. That is Ayanda Sishi-Wigzell. She's a political commentator.